What's up there, ladies and gents? Welcome back to Resurrection Reviews. Again, my name is Steve, and we are continuing on the Summer of Slash series with a movie from 1983 called FRIGHTMARE. This movie stars Ferdy Mayne, I believe his name is. He is an old horror actor, ends up dying. He's got some specific wishes for after his death. Eventually, these kids in a horror film group at a college take his body. So this is where it starts to get incredibly weird. They steal his body, bring it back to his to their little mansion or whatever, and like their little clubhouse or whatever. It's a big gothic building, really cool looking. They steal his body, bring it back. He ends up coming back to life after they somewhat humiliate him, and he kills virtually everyone. That's pretty much a rundown of the movie. There's a lot more to it, or at least a little bit more to it. The movie's runtime is about 85, 86 minutes, so pretty quick little movie, but I think, personally, very entertaining. This movie came up on a slasher list, but I wasn't sure if it was actually a slasher movie until I watched it. And in some ways it's a slasher movie, but in other ways it's something else. It's actually, in many ways, sort of a Hammer-style gothic horror movie, updated for the 1980s with a slasher movie structure and some slasher movie type effects and all this different stuff. I'll get into that. So, all these characters, a lot of the characters that are in this core horror film fan group, they are slasher archetypes. You've got sort of a hippy-dippy chick, you've got kind of like a hot chick, you've got the older, not older, but like sort of somewhat of a jock vibe type of guy. You got him going on there. You've got like a goof-off kind of guy. You've got a couple of guys who are sort of goof-offs and kind of crazy. And then you've got a very clearly defined sort of classic version of a final girl. And I really liked that. I liked all that kind of stuff going on there. The characters were actually, they're not incredibly engaging, but they filled out a lot of those slasher archetypes. Some of them do some funny stuff. They definitely do some quirky and really weird stuff, even some overtones of like necrophilia, which is pretty scary when you think about it. The movie itself's not necessarily scary, but you've got some of these things that these characters do that are pretty freaky. And then you've got this final girl who's sort of playing off of all of her crazy friends. In some ways, you're kind of like, why is she even friends with these people? But maybe it's the fact that these kids are just starting to act out on these crazy things, and she wouldn't know until this stuff happens how crazy they are. But anyway, the first thing I want to touch on is just, there's that, and then there's the sort of Hammer-style gothic horror element. It's shot in some ways like a slasher movie. You've got some of these like neo-noir, like spindly lights. I'm trying to do this sort of like a spindle effect to the shadows when they shoot this big staircase and stuff like that. You guys might know what I'm talking about. It kind of is reminiscent of shadows coming through Venetian blinds and stuff like that. Really cool stuff there. Sometimes slasher movies or giallo movies sort of take that and put them in their movies, but for the most part, the visual element looks a lot like a Hammer-style gothic horror movie. It's shot in a big house that's very gothic. They've got some gothic backgrounds and stuff, but they've also got a flashing neon sign over like a big gothic tomb, which is pretty cool, big gothic mausoleum. Really kind of mixing these 80s references with these sort of 50s, 60s, 70s like Hammer horror vibes. Really cool stuff going on there visually. The main character, or sort of the main antagonist, whose name is Conrad Radzoff, played by Freddie Main. Really cool stuff going on there. He's an old horror actor. He kind of takes the actor seems to kind of take cues from Vincent Price and Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Kind of mixes all those together, gets some of their mannerisms going. It's really kind of cool the way he sort of mixes everything together, and he's also crazy. So the movie ends up kind of feeling like a late era Vincent Price movie mixed with an 80s horror movie, specifically a slasher movie. It's got some creature feature vibes, kind of got some vibes like a later movie, of course, Fright Night. Really looks similar to Fright Night, kind of got a similar vibe going on. I know I'm saying vibe a lot, but it works for this movie. Really, a pretty darn good little movie. I was very surprised by it. I thought it was going to be a sort of Euro trash, somewhat giallo-esque Italian horror movie. It ended up being produced in America. The distribution company must have been Troma, because you got like the Troma thing up front, and I can't remember the guy who does Troma, but anyway, they got those names up front and the Troma icon, sort of the buildings in the background, that kind of thing going on. And then at the end of the movie, it must have had a Vinegar Syndrome release, because there was a Vinegar Syndrome symbol at the end of the movie after the ending credits. So I don't know if I would recommend picking it up, just because Vinegar Syndrome can be expensive. And also there are negatives to the movie, but it is a pretty fun little flick. Some of the negatives that I would get into, there is a nude scene. It's fairly quick and you can get through it fairly quickly. But it does take the movie down a peg for me just a bit, because I was enjoying it so much. This isn't a classic by any means. I mean, most of the acting's pretty good, but some of the characters are kind of one note. Eventually it does seem to lag a little bit, despite the fact that it's only 86 minutes long. But I do think it's underrated, underseen, and underappreciated in some ways as a slasher movie and as an 80s version of a Hammer horror gothic film. Really good stuff going on here overall. Got kind of a slashery score to it, very reminiscent of a lot of slasher movies of its time. Big, synthy score going on. Pretty good score, and I think I would probably try and look it up on YouTube if I can. Really interesting little soundtrack there. Overall, I gotta say, I gotta recommend it, honestly. If you're not looking to take something too seriously, because there are comedic things in there, but if you're not looking to take something too seriously and you're just wanting to check out kind of maybe something you haven't seen before, I say definitely check out FRIGHTMARE from 1983. It's on Amazon for free. If you've got Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. Pretty good little flick. I say definitely check it out. Seek it out. Just skip past that very quick nude scene. It's fairly easy to get past. I say if you just count that out of it, it's a pretty fun little movie. I wouldn't give it a very high rating. I definitely rate it higher than IMDb has it. IMDb has it at 4.4 out of 10. I think that's a little low. I'd give it at least a 6, maybe even a 6.5. A fairly good little slasher horror gothic movie from 1983. So that's my review of FRIGHTMARE. Hope you enjoyed it. The next movie I'll be reviewing, and hopefully I'll have the review up today, will be The Boogeyman from 1980, directed by Uli Lommel. I've never seen this movie. I'm excited to check it out. I've heard some fairly good stuff about it. I've heard at least it's got a pretty cool score, and I've heard a lot of negative things about it too, so who knows? I'll probably end up having kind of a mixed review. A little bit like this one, but probably a little bit less enthusiastic than I am right now. I do say definitely check out FRIGHTMARE if you can skip past that one little scene. Pretty darn good movie. Rock on. If you like, subscribe. I say talk to you guys later. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.